Hey, hope you're doing well today. Day 2 of our virtual art camp. I'm going to show you how to make a dragonfly. Here's a little one. Here's an even smaller one. You like my dragonfly sound effects? I'm using watercolor paper. Like I said, I've got these guys that I've made, and I use just regular computer paper. You can use any paper really. You're going to need to start with, you might start with a square. Ultimately, you need to make a half of a square, a good triangle shape here, which is not normal for origami, but these guys I think are pretty cool, so we're going to roll with it. We're also going to use scissors at one point in this, so just to keep in mind, we'll have this guy kind of keep us company while we're folding today. So again, scissors are not usual with origami, but I think the end result, as you can see, I think is worth it. I'm using, I think, as I said, watercolor paper. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to decorate these guys afterwards, and I want to use paint to do it. So I need a paper that's going to stand up a little bit better. So that's my thinking. But you could decorate these with crayons or with markers, whatever you choose to use. I think it would be worth it. Pen and ink would be very cool. So yeah. All right, here we go. Going to take this triangle shape that I've got from cutting a square in half, and I'm going to fold it in half. I'm being real conscious to try and make a nice clean crease, matching up my edges really nicely. And then I'm going to go back and forth over this with my my thumbnail and my fingernail to make a really nice crease there. I'm going to open this guy up. Be aware that if you do use watercolor paper, it'll be much more difficult to fold. But like I say, I know that going in, so I'm going to kind of go with it. We'll see if it works. It might not work. Sometimes that's a kind of a good result to learn a lesson about what kind of paper. So I didn't mention that when I just did that. So I'm going to take this edge and I'm going to fold it into the center line. So that's kind of what I've just done there. If you've ever made a paper airplane, this will feel very much like that. Be real conscious of trying to keep a nice sharp point here. And then I'm just going over it with my thumb and my index fingernail. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So you can see I'm starting to kind of curve the paper before I fold it. That's kind of preparing the paper to make this fold that I want it to make. If you are just kind of starting out with origami, maybe not as comfortable with origami, I would not recommend using watercolor paper for this purpose because you will, this has proven a little bit tricky, just so you know. I'm going to open that up. So now you can see kind of the shape that I've created. And this time I'm going to fold this point, this end point here, up to the top of the triangle. So I can show you that. It looks kind of like this. And everything that we're doing so far is what's called a preparatory fold. We're preparing the paper to do something that we want it to do. And so I don't need to fold all the way across this length for this next step. So I'm just going to fold up to where that crease joins in. And I'm going to give it a nice good press with my thumbnail and my index finger. And then I'll open that up again. So everything we've done you can see is kind of a preparation. So I'm going to bring this outside point up to the top as well. And you can see there, once I've got it matched up nicely, then I'm going to go ahead and kind of press this crease in. And same thing, I'm going to stop where I see that other crease there. So I've done that. And I've opened it up, which I think looks all right. So this next step is where it gets a little bit tricky. These two, so what we're going to do is we're going to use these creases that we've got here, and we're going to start to bring this paper in. So I'm bringing this edge into the center line, and I'm bringing this edge into the center line as well. So you can see I'm kind of pressing it down in there. Turn that so you can see it maybe a little bit better. So I'm pressing those edges in, and I'm kind of inverting these folds here. So this probably I would say is maybe one of the trickiest steps in this origami piece. So you can see I'm just kind of pressing them in, and I'm using again those creases that are already existing there. And now I end up with this this guy's kind of pointed straight up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of follow that, and I want to make a nice sharp crease. So I want this crease to come right in between that all the way out to the point there. And just kind of looking, and kind of lining it up. You can see I'm just kind of curling that whole thing until that crease. So it kind of just, this is, like I said, it's kind of a tricky step, but there it is. And it should lay down nicely right on top of this point that's already there. So, and once it lays down like that, I'm just going to kind of reinforce those creases by going over it with my thumbnail and my fingernail. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side, so now you can kind of watch. I'm using these creases. I'm going to kind of bend these parts in here, and I'm just going to kind of start to get this point so that it comes almost straight up. So you can see I'm bringing it out. I'm just curling it in between my fingers here until I get that nice sharp point there. There we go. And now I'm just going to lay that down just the way. So these guys are flaps, and you can see they lay right down, and I make kind of this kite shape, which is what I'm looking for. I'm going to turn the whole thing so that those flaps are kind of pointed towards me. And now I'm going to use this crease here as a guide, and I'm going to fold this flap along that crease so that it kind of sticks out to the side like that. Sometimes origami artists will use a tool during this called a bone folder, which is just kind of a reinforced, I think it used to be a long time ago, a piece of bone, but it's kind of a reinforced piece of plastic that will just help you make your creases harder. So I'm just kind of using these scissors for that purpose. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm using that crease as my guide, and I'm folding this out to that edge just like that. So I'm not... So I'm using those scissors because if you push too hard, it might be painful for your fingers, especially if you're using this really thick paper like I am. So I've got this guy. I feel pretty good about the way this guy looks. I'm going to flip the whole thing over. And this next step, it's a little bit tricky. So I'm going to turn it. I want to bring this edge, so watch here, this edge, I'm going to fold this whole edge into the center line here. And you can see that these flaps are going to kind of come with it. So I'm just kind of bending the paper until it comes around. I want that flap to continue to do exactly what it's doing because I want it to kind of wrap around in this way. And once I get that kind of folded there, you can see that part kind of wants to come around, but that's okay. I'm going to take just that hard plastic to kind of bend it the rest of the way. And then here's kind of another little tricky part. I want this flap to lay down. So you can see I kind of pushed on this part here just to kind of get it to lay down. And what I'm going to do is that part that I just pushed, I'm just going to kind of fold it. So once I kind of push that and get it to lay down there, I'm just going to fold it and reinforce it with my nice hard plastic scissors. So that's what that should look like. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to take this edge here and I'm going to fold it into that center line, knowing that little flap is going to kind of come over with it. So I've gotten that fold to kind of do what I want it to do. Keep in mind that paper is very malleable. So like these parts down here that I'm not totally happy with, I'm just going to kind of force them to where I want them to be. That's really what origami is. I'm kind of forcing this paper to do all these things I want it to do. So I've got this guy kind of sticking up here. Remember, I'm just going to kind of push it out. And notice I'm pushing that fold over. I'm going to get that guy just to kind of lay down. And then once I've got it to lay down like that, I'm going to use my scissors to reinforce that fold. So there we've got that guy. We're very close to having a dragonfly now. So there's this piece of paper here, that folded over section. I want to cut. So I'm going to kind of open this up, and I'm going to use my scissors to cut all the way to that little crease there. So I'll show you that. I'm just going to cut all the way until they hit that corner in there. And that's where I'm going to stop that. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. So I'm just going to kind of open that up. And you can kind of see where the corner is. So that's what I'm looking for as I'm cutting with my scissors. I'm looking for where is that corner at. And that's kind of where I'm stopping. So you can see. And these are the parts that are going to kind of really open up for our dragonfly's wings. In fact, I'm going to open it up. So I'm going to kind of fold this guy back in this way. You can see, kind of just open it up. So as far as it'll go, I'm just kind of opening that flap up and folding it over. And you can see, so now I've got kind of some cool dragonfly wings there. Last two more steps, I guess. So I'm going to take the top triangle shape here, and I'm just going to fold that back, just like so, until it kind of comes right, the tip is between those wings there. Going to press that down so it's a nice hard fold there. And then for my last step, I'm just going to kind of fold this whole thing in half. So you can see, well, I said it was my last step. I've got a few more steps left. We're very close though. You can see like this guy is about to be a dragonfly. So for one of my next steps, I'm just going to fold these wings over because I want them to kind of lay down. Do the same thing on the other side. Fold that guy over. And I really want them to kind of lay out like that. And you can see we're very close now. The last step, maybe it's the last step, we'll see if I trick you again, is I'm just going to open up. So I've got kind of this space out here. And so I'm just kind of pushing that open. And what I'm going to do is this paper, because it's watercolor paper that just tore, which is okay. It's all right. Maybe that's like a little mouth that I just made. So got that guy, gonna open this up because it's gonna kind of make the head shape for this little dragonfly. And that's pretty much it. So I kind of open that up and kind of flatten it out, but you can see now I've got my dragonfly. Here's my other guys, my little guy. Once you know how to do this, you can make all different sizes. And look for another video coming in the future where I will paint this guy. You guys can see kind of how I choose to decorate it. But thanks for watching, and I hope you're having a good Tuesday.